All right, this is my daily update for my build on public log. It's February 6th, 2025. I'm really excited to share today's update. I made really good progress the last 24 hours, despite not working very much yesterday. I had a lot of personal stuff going on. I just had way too much going on, and literally not enough hours in the day. But yeah, I'm excited. So let's dig into it. Okay, this is a work in progress. Nothing here is set in stone. This is just a sneak preview at what I'm doing like right now. Yeah, this is going to be the landing page. I still think it needs a lot more work, but I'm pretty excited. Let's just scan through this really quick. Now, again, this is just placeholders, except for this one. None of this is set in stone. It's all placeholders for now. But there'll be a list of agents. You'll be able to filter. I need to rebuild that. This needs to change. This is fake, and all of this needs to change. But I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to go for. There'll be testimonials here. Ideally, there's testimonials. Some kind of blurb there. Some kind of nice animation. Pretty cool. This is real. You can toggle through and see the different languages. So I'm definitely gonna have to build a simple SDK for JavaScript, TypeScript, Python as well. These are the two languages I know the best. Like I know very well. PHP, I don't know. You're all gonna have to just make a direct API call. I don't know PHP at all, or Go, unfortunately. But that's like real working code. Good enough for now. I'll circle back to that later. But this is what I'm really, really stoked about. Let's say you want to use an agent, but you're using no code. You don't know how to code. No worries. There'll be an option for you if you're using N8N. You'll be able to just copy. You can click this and copy. You can actually look at the raw code and copy in here. Tons of options. No worries if you're no code. I'm no code friendly. I'm really pleased with how this is turning out. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so you'll be able to log in. There's no login yet, and this will change. That is going to be later, probably not even this week. No, it's not going to be this week. This is real. You can actually buy something, but there's nothing to buy. All right, let's get to the demo. So what I'm thinking is something like this. Again, this is like, I'm in the middle of designing. I'm not a designer, to be really honest. I just throw shit on the page, and I just like tweak and fiddle until it looks right and feels right to me. I'm just not a designer at all. So, and I need a lot of like inspiration to follow. I guess all designers work that way though. So, okay, this needs to change. But anyway, so the idea is, you're going to, I want to make this cheap for a lot of people. One thing I don't like about OpenAI is now they have this pro tier. It's for the rich people in the world. And let's be honest, $200 a month just to use an AI tool is absurd. That's for like Americans and software engineers and rich people. Like, let's be real. Most of the world cannot afford a $200 a month bill just for an AI tool. Like, I am going to try to keep this like cheap so people can use. My goal with this is to like have actual real non-bullshit, non-hype AI agents that actually work, that are actually battle tested, that actually have tests, that are actually iterated on, and are not just like hype. I see so many agents all over the internet these days, all over Twitter, X, whatever. And I go and I take a look. I'm like, this is nonsense. Like, there's no goddamn way this works even remotely close to advertised. I mean, it could probably half-ass kind of does something, but I'm not buying a lot of the snake oil that's being sold, in my opinion. Could you build these agents yourself? Of course, if you're a software engineer with AI tools, but it's like just not worth. It's not worth like having someone spend a month or two, or maybe just a month or weeks building an agent. It's like just call this thing. It's pretty cheap. We're not gonna, it's just not worth to have an engineer work on this for a month. Like just here's money. Just let us call this thing and use your agent. You're gonna be responsible. You're gonna make it better, faster. You're gonna fix bugs. You're gonna make it better. That's what I'm trying to accomplish here. So with that in mind, let's look at the demo. This is a real demo. This is actually gonna call the the API on the server. Um, let's see if it works. All right, cool. Uh, before we get to that, so you just type in a prompt. You can add additional context. The way you're gonna actually call this with the API is like different. Like you'll have all these options. You can structure things a little bit differently, but you could also just put straight up text too. So I try to be user friendly. Like you can put everything in just one string of text. You could put all sorts of stuff in here. You could put an entire email. You could put loads of stuff in here. Um, but for the demo, you just get the input and you just get some additional context. Um, Now this needs work. Again, I'm like that was the last thing I just worked on. It's pretty janky. Yeah, look, I don't even know what Inventify is, but yeah. So that will be run. You'll actually be able to run this. Um, I'm contemplating letting people run the agents in the browser, but man, that's a lot more work, and I know what that work will entail. So it might just be API only, and that will be like an afterthought, and I'll get it working in the browser. That's just there's a lot of headaches that come along with that. Anyways, yeah, this is not displaying correctly, so I need to look at that. It's in UTC because when you actually call it via the API, you'll pass in like the default time zone you want to show, but because it's a demo, just shows it in UTC. But this actually works. So let's say time zone is California. Like you don't even need to put a real time zone. It reads just human text. So two, and you notice it's not instantaneous. So what this is doing is that kicks off the call to kick off the agent, gets added to a queue, and then it starts polling. And actually, my polling code is like pretty slow in the demo. So I need to make that faster because it's like really slow. I think it's like a second delay or something. But anyways, it's not making an API call and getting an immediate response. You remember what it's doing. It is polling. Kicks off the agent, it goes into a queue, and it polls for it. So it's not instantaneous, but it's very, very quick right now. It's usually like a second or two. And what is taking so long? The thing that takes the longest is just waiting for the LLM. And there's nothing I can do about it. So this changed the time. And you can look at the raw code. Returns a lot. You got Markdown, HTML, there's text, there's and a string ical, actual raw file. Pretty cool. All the links, the raw event data. So when you call an agent, you're going to get a lot of data back. So not a lot. I mean, the payload's not that big, but you'll have a lot of different options with what you want to do. So yeah, let's actually check this. So what did I say? I said 2 p.m. Pacific. Let's click this. Yep, it worked. Nice. Let's just try really quickly. Jeff's email is jeff@example.com. Ignore the shitty progress bar that doesn't actually work. Yeah, cool. There's the attendees. Now let's open it up in Google. Yeah, hell yeah, cool. So I hope that kind of clarifies kind of what I'm going for here. But I'm super, super stoked to actually start calling this thing. That is, let me just pull this up really quick. Uh, yeah, screw it. Let's just look at this. So the client called the API, it validated things, it kicked it into the queue. This is no longer trigger. This is the old diagram I showed in a previous video. This is actually bull MQ with Dragonfly DB. It ran the agent, it called the LLM. That happened here. It processed, validated again. It got the results. It logged the results. Saved. That isn't working yet. That works temporarily. It's like temporary data that expires in a week. And then the polling. So this, it polled and got the response done. Whew. So I've been working on for a little while now. Let me show that really quick. So please, 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 what do you want built? What agents are you dying for? If you could snap your fingers and you magically make an AI agent like they're ready for you to call and use, what do you want? Please let me know in the comments. I'll look, if you're watching this and you tell me, I'll probably build it. So again, these are placeholders. This is just like things I have in my head for what's next. But let me know. So, and let me know what you think. Does this look useful? Am I on the right path? Is this just dumb? Am I just wasting my time, my valuable time here? I'm just building something nobody wants. I'm using this thing like my other tool that I'm building, an AI virtual assistant. That's going to be calling this for several agents. So yeah, that's the update for today. All right, moving on to my random story for the day. This is kind of a funny one. So this is so random. I was talking to my mom, and she was telling me she's very, very excited. I was like, "What are you excited about?" I'm making sourdough bread, and I was like, "Okay, that's very random." And she said, "So this is apparently this is popular, or at least in her algorithm bubble, as I refer to it, TikTok or whatever the hell she saw this. She's like, oh, it's very popular. People are making sourdough bread at home." So they do. It's kind of funny. What's old is new again. Hundreds of years ago, like our ancestors did for hundreds and hundreds of years. So when you can't get yeast from like a brewer, traditionally you'd go to the beer brewer. You would go, I don't know, somebody would just like sell you yeast somehow or a starter. So what you do is you get flour and you kind of feed it, kind of like you're making kombucha or something. You have fermenting flour and you keep feeding it water, and then you take a little out and you keep feeding this little monster, and it's like a leavening agent like yeast. It's like a living thing that's fermenting, and you just pull a bit of that off and you throw it in bread and you make sourdough bread. This is how our ancestors did it, like hundreds and hundreds of years, probably thousands, I don't know. And you do that because it pulls the yeast out of the air, and you keep this thing going. And there's families here in America even who have done this continuously for like over 100 years, and they just pick some off and they make sourdough bread. You don't need to buy yeast, you don't need to get it from anywhere, but traditionally you would, when you wanted more normal bread and not sourdough, because this, if you have if you have this going for like 100 years, that shit is going to be sour as hell. It is going to be tangy and kind of funky. I personally like that. I'm all for that, but I like a lot of weird food. But if you want more traditional bread, you would go to the beer maker, the guy who made beer, and you would use that, and that gives it more of a white bread, whole wheat kind of traditional flavor. Okay, so my mom is trying to do this, And it's so funny because there's a great YouTube channel. I'll drop a link in the description called for the Townsends. They are like they do like reenactments where the guy he does cooking like from the 1700s kind of thing, like the 16 or 1700s cooking. He like reenacts everything on their house. They have a whole set where they built everything like they did in the 1700s. This guy is legit. He is hardcore, this guy and this family. Really cool videos. I highly recommend if you're even remotely into this kind of stuff. Sounds boring, but it's very relaxing, especially before bed. What's old is new, like I said. So my mom is all excited to do this, and I was like, cool. And it reminded me of a time where I saw this in real life. This one time I was in Ethiopia, and I went on this camping hiking trip with my buddy, but we kind of went in separate groups. He did a really hardcore one. I did the less hardcore. But we were camping out in the mountains, in the high mountains of Ethiopia, at some of the highest elevations in Africa. And we got down off the mountain and went back to the little town. And we were starving. Like I was so hungry. I remember being starving. I needed a shower badly. You know, they didn't quite feed us that last day, and I don't think we had anything to eat for a while. And one of the guides, you know, when you backpack through some of these countries, you find these guys who are just your guides for a little while and go on these little adventures with them. And this one guide, some of them are, they look at you like you're an ATM, and they're not very, you know, they're not very nice. But some of them are pretty cool and they just want to hang out. They're like cool guys and they just want to chill. And this guy just invited me and my friend to his house. He's like, hey, do you want to hang out and see my house? We were like, fuck yeah. So we go to their house, and I was like, oh, this isn't bad. You could tell they're like kind of a rich family in the area. You can tell they're like an upper class family in the area. And so you go to the house, and Ethiopia is fucking crazy. They're old school as hell. They do things dating back to thousands of years. I saw it with my own eyes, guys. So they're like very old school. So the mom is responsible, or wife is responsible for cooking, making coffee, brewing the beer, and making the sourdough bread. He went into the house and kicked back on the couch, put his feet up on the table. I was like, so and so, sister, make the coffee. So what they do is the coffee is so good. They come in and they have this little stove like right in the living room, like a live fire stove with like wood or gas or whatever. And they put some coffee beans and they roast the beans and they make a coffee right then and there. It sounds nasty, but it's so goddamn good. It's like espresso. I would have like 6 of these things a day. I got so hooked on coffee after being there. So the sister, she rolls her eyes, fine. She's making coffee for us. They're like, do you want popcorn? I know it's weird. They're like, oh, we have snacks. Every family, this is how it was back in the day all over the world, and we just stopped doing it. But they still do all this stuff. Everywhere you go, they make beer, and by beer, I use that term very lightly. It is swampy, nasty water. In some of these places we went to, the beer was nasty. It just tasted like dirty, muddy hop water. But anyways, the mom, she makes beer. That's what you do. So they gave us some like homemade beer. That was actually an okay one. I was so hungry and thirsty. Like we have popcorn. Yeah, they eat popcorn. It's fucking weird, but they do it. So there was popcorn, homemade beer, fresh brewed coffee that's like espresso. And then they were like, we have sourdough bread. And I was like, this is weird as hell, but okay. And it was actually really good. All of it was pretty good. And I'm going to town and I eat this whole piece of sourdough bread. It's behind the couch. They have a big bowl where it's just kind of fermenting and sitting there. And they open up like a towel and there's some sourdough. So what they do is they make the beer and they use the yeast to make the sourdough. Kind of makes sense, you know what I mean? Think about it. Because they have all this yeast. They're making beer all the time. And that's what they do. They make the sourdough. And it was good as hell. And I devoured this. And I'll never forget. They were sitting there watching TV. It looked like the TV my family had in 1990s. It was like old school CRT, like, the big 1990s TV. And I was like, what the hell are they watching? And me and my friend were just sitting there eating popcorn, beer, coffee, and sourdough bread. And I'll never forget, this chicken rounds the corner and walks right into the living room and is just hanging out in the living room. Like, I elbow my friend, like, hey, check it out. He just started laughing, couldn't help it. And he's like, oh yeah, don't mind the chickens. And the sister sitting there making the coffee. And we're hanging out there with the chicken, the mom, the sister, the guy, the brother, and enjoying our homemade beer, homemade sourdough, and popcorn and coffee. I was grateful. I thought it was cool as fuck. But it was so funny. Never forget that chicken walking in and just casually hanging out in the living room. All right, that's all I got for today. Let me know what you think of what I'm building. I'd appreciate it. See you tomorrow.